Okay friends, welcome to part 11 of our video presentation on chapter 9. In this part we will talk about user application development. Software application development by non-IS, non-IT professionals has grown rapidly with the introduction of user-friendly hardware and software tools. So by non-IS professionals we mean business users or individual departments or subunits within an organization that decide to develop an information system or a small app outside of the formal procedures and also without the help of the central IT or IS department. And by user-friendly hardware and software tools, we mean a variety of software applications, for example, Microsoft Office that includes Excel and Microsoft Access, and those applications can be used for creating relatively powerful database and business intelligence tools by end users and individual departments. Now, most organizations did not expect that in the 1970s. Most managers didn't expect PCs to be used by individuals both at home and in the corporate setting. But people started purchasing personal computers, and in fact, some of the early software, personal productivity software, it gave a huge boost to individual adoption of desktop computers or personal computers. And over time, applications were developed for developing end-user applications. For example, Microsoft Access is a classic example of a relatively small application that can be used by individuals to develop relatively sophisticated databases and systems. So what are some of the advantages of user development when individuals or individual units within an organization develop their own software? Well, first of all, users do not have to explain their requirements to analysts that work for an IT department, and this becomes especially advantageous to in a situation where information system analysts working for an IT department have very limited domain knowledge of the area where a particular business user works. Also, users do not have to wait for IS resources to be free. They can start working on their projects themselves. And also, business managers, the ones who manage this user development, their own development, they are put into better control over development costs and timelines. So they're in charge, as opposed to relying on IT department to do all those things and controls. The disadvantages of user application development include, first of all, less attention is typically paid to security and data quality. Some users are simply not aware of architectural considerations, and if architecture is weak, then it can open the door for a number of exploits or a number of security problems. Data quality sometimes is not ensured by individual users. Also, when you let users develop their own application, you lose opportunities for application integration because different units may develop their applications using different technologies, different protocols, and they may not, those applications developed by individual users or departments may not work together really well. And there are also increased operational risks due to a job change of the user developer. So for example, somebody developed an application, it was quite useful, but then this person left organization or switched to another unit. No documentation was left behind. IT department has no idea what this application was doing, how it was designed. So there is a problem of continuity sometimes. Just a few words about errors. When end users develop applications, they can have a lot of errors in relation to the data that drives those applications or the code. So there can be mechanical errors like some typos, there can be logical errors, some kind of mistake is done in the logic of the software application. Omission errors, some important things are not included. Qualitative errors means those errors are not immediately visible, some kind of misjudgment, and then later on they show up in the form of quantitative, very serious and specific quantitative errors. So this is just like one example of Fidelity's fund manager or tax accountant. So basically what happened, he or she missed a sign. Instead of putting minus 1.3 billion, he put a plus 1.3 billion by omitting the minus sign basically. So the spreadsheet model was off by 2.6 billion. So just one typo leads to $2.6 billion error. And speaking about Excel, you would be surprised that now, Excel is kind of looked down upon. It's not viewed as a powerful software tool, just like an individual productivity application. But you would be amazed to see like
some of the world's most well-known and some of the world's largest corporations having all of their finances managed through Excel sheets, and that's amazing. I remember there was a scandal in relation to Enron. Now, Enron was a huge Houston-based energy company, and the problem was discovered basically when one of their chief accounting officers was basically looking through Excel sheets generated by the CFO, Andy Fastow. So browsing Excel sheets, basically gave this person a lot of insights as to what was wrong with their accounting system, and that was like one of the events that actually led to the bankruptcy of Enron. And when Enron and WorldCom and I think some other companies went bankrupt because of accounting fraud, I guess, the U.S. government passed this Sarbanes-Oxley Act, or SOX. And this act requires a number of things, but one thing that it requires is that organizations are responsible for their data quality. So you cannot say, "Oh, I'm sorry, it was an error in an Excel sheet." So you as an organization, as an executive in charge of an organization, you're responsible for accuracy of accounting and financial data. So spreadsheets and applications, spreadsheets and applications utilizing those spreadsheets become objects of audit. In fact, they have to be properly maintained. I believe the Act requires them to be maintained for at least 5 years. So this is something that creates additional problem with end-user application development, because if data quality is not taken into consideration, then it can lead to a number of legal problems, not just errors, but also legal problems in relation to some of the legislature in relation to financial and accounting data. So before an IT department authorizes an end-user application development project, potential risks have to be pre-assessed. So a risk can be pre-assessed by considering 3 areas: application characteristics, tool characteristics, and developer characteristics. If somebody is developing a very large application, something that will be used, by the entire organization or one big business unit, and the business problem is complex, the business problem that this application is addressing is complex. Also, if this application requires sophisticated tools and the developer is not experienced, then definitely maybe you should put a stop to an end-user application development process. However, if it's something that is small, something that relies on simple tools and developer is quite experienced, then you may let the users or the department develop the application. As an IT manager, you may let them develop it on their own. End-user application development projects are not exempt from project management, because they're still projects. They can be a simple, small scale, but they're still projects. In fact, for large, complex systems, SDLC should be used. In other words, it should be treated like as a formal organizational software project. However, if the project is small, then you can use like a simplified version, collapsed lifecycle model, meaning some of the steps can be omitted. Also, if it's something that is complex, but it's a personal application, you typically can use an agile, iterative development methodology. And if it's something that is simple but large, then maybe you need to use prototyping to ensure that everybody understands the features, provides feedbacks, and to make sure that errors are eliminated at the development stage, so that work unit applications, because a lot of people will be using it, so it's important to eliminate all those errors. Again, there's no single rule as to which methodology to use, but the bottom line here is that those projects should be treated as software projects, not as something that should be just completely off the radar. Some 2 common problems in relation to end-user software development: not doing enough testing. Users are quick to develop things, but sometimes they just don't have the knowledge, don't have the experience in relation to the boring stuff, such as testing. And then number 2, and maybe I would say number 1, not providing sufficient documentation. Again, experienced developers, they know that commenting code, writing documentation is essential for subsequent software maintenance or operations. Departments may not know that. For them, everything may be transparent. They don't need any documentation. But again, if you're trying to maintain, as an IT department, if you're trying to maintain that application or integrate it with other applications, then documentation becomes essential. Okay, friends, so that's it, and that's the end of Chapter 9 video presentation. Thank you for listening.